Hi, I'm Jordan Thiswood, and I'm joined today by Gary Jones, and this is a Katana lighting story. Hi, Gary.
Hi, Jordan.
Let's talk about your journey into production.
I cross-trained to VFX from my previous career about 10 years ago. I spent some time in deciding exactly what I wanted to do, and when I first got into VFX, it was as a generalist, partly through Maya, plus using After Effects for some comp and some Nuke. And then I moved into film, and that was about 3.5 years ago.
What was it about the lighting that got you in there?
So when I had been doing the entire production, I'd noticed that there were 2 points in that kind of process where things really came alive. And the first one really for me was in animation. That point where you take something with a rig and a model and you breathe life into it. When you actually get the lighting right and it sits in the plate, that point is it's like magic. Suddenly something which is just a bunch of numbers and pixels and points suddenly becomes part of the scene, and it's just like an extra bit of magic, and that's what really drew me towards lighting.
You've had the fortunate sort of circumstance to work on some pretty big films. Right. So that with them carries some pretty big DOPs. Would you say that looking at the plates, sort of shot by these great DOPs has helped you sort of with lighting sensibilities?
I think even before I kind of got into the industry, I spent an awful lot of time watching films, watching behind the scenes, listening to DOPs and kind of their thought processes. And it's one of those things that you try to bring to almost every shot that you're doing. You're not thinking about, what do I want from this? It's more a case of what would the DOP want for this? Because you're almost the person that is on the set moving the lights for them. You're using your own instincts, your own kind of feeling, but you're also trying to work out what they're trying to achieve.
So you've spent all this time looking at cinematography, looking at the behind the scenes, studying the techniques. How far off do you feel from your work as an artist? Are we from that sort of panacea of being able to sort of treat things just like digital cinematography?
I think we're really close. I think the kind of techniques that you'd use on a set are the sort of techniques that I try to use when I'm actually doing the lighting. I tend to think when I'm approaching a shot in the same way as if I was a DOP on the set, or if I was helping the DOP on the set. And I think that the quality of the work that we're producing nowadays, I think for some of the films that I've worked on, the average audience wouldn't know that they're CG, and that's always the goal, really.
So you'd say for anyone that aspires to get into visual effects production and they have a strong interest in lighting, that studying these cinematography principles, looking at the behind the scenes videos like you did, really is sort of their direct line into basically the fastest progression?
Yeah, I think so. I think there's a wealth of information out there. DOPs are getting interviewed a lot nowadays. You can see behind the scenes or just conversations after films have been done with DOPs, what they've done that's different, and you can learn so much. It definitely behooves anyone who's hoping to get into the industry to watch as much as you can, assimilate as much as you can, and then you'll have the kind of vocabulary and the vernacular to be able to have those conversations and to be able to make the changes that are asked for in the daily sessions.
Tell me about the techniques that you get into when you're dealing with something that's a little bit more architectural based, or just you're put into a position where you're asked to place a lot of lights and manage a lot of lights. How do you sort of manage the digital cinematography on that side?
Some of the projects that I've worked on where you're doing large kind of interior kind of shots, to some extent they can be a lot more creative. One in particular I remember where you've basically got a character who's looking at a green screen, and there's a whole set there that is entirely CG, and you're wanting to light it in such a way that it gives it a sense of scale. So you've got a lot of lights and you're having to place individual lights across the whole scene, and you basically reproduce that lighting as quickly as you can, and iterate over it and make it as pretty as possible. And those kind of shots would be, if it was a set, it would be really hard because you would have a lot of lights in a lot of places. But that ability to duplicate, manage the kind of colour and the intensity of all of those lights, use one material across a whole bank of them, so if you need to change it, you can do it. is very easy when you're dealing with a CG-based kind of workflow, and it makes that ability to take creative notes a lot easier than if you were on a set. Having someone run around to change all of those lights would be extremely difficult. And once you've dressed that set with the lighting, it could be used for 50, 100 shots.
One thing that comes along with computer graphics is always scene management. How much does that play into the work that you've done in the past?
A lot of it depends on what your position is within the lighting department, because not all lighting artists are the same. There are some lighting artists who are very creative minded, some that have a very good throughput, and some that have got some technical skills. Now, very soon in your time in the lighting department, your kind of superiors will work out where your strengths lie. The nice thing is the tools that we have available now, like Katana, enable you to have different people working on their strengths and rolling out those strengths to help the rest of the team. So for instance, if you've got a problem that is scene management based across a number of shots or across sequences or across the whole show, one artist can make the change and that can be rolled out for all of them. You can free up the time for someone whose skills are more creative to only be doing the creative work, and that's really nice. Now, my strengths were quite often more on the technical side of things as well, so I was often fixing and managing problems, not just for myself but for other artists as well. And the nice thing is, once you've discovered a problem that may be on other shots and other sequences, you could then roll that change out to others. The tools that we have nowadays do make it a lot easier for artists to just, if their skill is just in the creative lighting, to just do creative lighting, and I think that's really nice.
Thanks, Gary, for all your time. Folks, I'm Jordan Thistlewood, and we've been chatting with Gary Jones, and this has been a Katana Lighting Story.